Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am back. This year marks 10 years that I have been in corporate South Africa. So 3 years as a trainee and 7 years post qualifying as a chartered accountant. So I thought it fitting that I share 10 lessons that I have learned in my decade in corporate South Africa. So that's what I'm sharing today, and hopefully this will help you in your career. I'm not saying I've always done it best, definitely I have not. I would be further along in my career if I had, but I'm just sharing some things that will hopefully help anyone in their career and that I've seen have helped me. So first things first, and this is very important for me, is to make meaningful connections or relationships. I know a lot of people go into corporate being like, I'm here for work, I'm here to work, not to make friends or any of those things, but I've made quite a lot of friends along the way. I've seen some of the corporate moves that I've made that really have made their mark in my career. I was motivated or helped by a relationship that I had built over time. So I think it's very important to face work or see corporate as more than just where you go to get your bread and butter, but make it where you go to make meaningful connections and impact people's lives, and vice versa. Number 2 is that no one will value you more than you value yourself. You need to fight for yourself. You need to be the one who believes in you and the meaningful contribution that you make in corporate. So it's very important to just have that confidence and to value yourself. A prime example of this is when you're going into a meeting and you don't really have rapport or any connection with the people that you're meeting with. It's very important for you to be confident and to hold your ground and not to wait for them to say, do you have anything to say? Because they can easily say, thanks everyone, cheers, and close the call without you having said anything. So you need to speak up and value yourself. Then people will, hey, who's this? Then they'll listen up to you, and it takes time to get there. I'm not there yet. I still have to challenge myself. So don't be scared. Value yourself and raise those points or speak up. Number 3 is, and this probably should have been like number 2 or 1, it's be intentional about your finances. I remember my very first salary. I received it and then I was like, okay, I've never had so much money in the bank. Okay, my rent is this much, everything else is that much. What do I do with the rest? Like, do I save? Do I invest? I don't even know that much about investing, and it can easily get out of hand where 10 years down the line in your career you look and you don't have much in your savings or in retirement for that matter, and you're just like, what have I been working towards all these years? Will I work well into my old age because I haven't been accumulating much? And one other thing is that once you start working, you basically have access to debt because everyone wants a claim on your payslip. It's like, oh, here's a payslip, you can afford certain things, we can give you this much, surely you'll be able to pay us. So once you have that access to debt, it can easily escalate where now you have this huge overdraft, this big car loan, this big cell phone contract, because everything is like you can afford it. So you need to be really intentional about your finances and the choices that you make. And I'm not saying here that just don't do any of these things. No, I'm saying all these things will be possible, but not all of them will be to your benefit. So you need to choose which ones you want to do. Work for something. Don't just get the money and do the easiest things or what others are doing. Be intentional about it. And on this channel I have lots of personal finance videos, so if you guys want to check out how to save, how I saved my $500,000 in my 20s, all of those good stuff, you can check out some of my older videos. But basically be intentional about your finances. Number 4 is pace yourself, which means work hard and play just as hard. basically your career will be a roller coaster. That's what was my experience. Sometimes I felt very motivated, inspired, and I really wanted to push and do well and impress and just be a star performer. And other times I had other priorities in my life, like raising kids, and those things can sometimes obviously clash. So you need to work hard and know which season you are in and thrive in that season. There are seasons where I have worked, even now I'm actually in that season where I've worked some weekends, some late nights, early mornings, and it just is what it is. I'll get my reward at the end of the year or at the end of that period when we celebrate with my colleagues for whatever it is that we've been pushing hard for. And there are periods where it's a little bit more relaxed and I can go out with my friends, I can go out on date nights during the week because it's a little bit more relaxed. So pace yourself. If you've got hectic working hours, just know that at some point it will get better. Well, that's been my experience. So just pace yourself as well. And this one almost goes hand in hand with the pacing yourself, but you need to be very clear about your personal values. I find that corporate can be very challenging, especially for females, in terms of what do you value. Like if your team wants you to work and you have a newborn, it can be very difficult, and you can then be that person. It can be that person who is seen as not ambitious or not hardworking or disengaged, because your priorities at that point are your kids, your family, and that's okay. So you need to know what is important in every season. I always use the analogy of rubber balls and glass balls. So there are rubber balls that if you bounce them, like you catch them, bounce, or it can bounce a few times. If you drop them, they bounce. So you can drop them a few times and you can still kind of catch it mid-air because it bounces a lot. Whereas there are some glass balls where if you drop them, they shatter and it's like that ball, it's over for it now. And in different seasons, different things will be glass balls. So for me, when my kids were newborns, they were my glass balls. For me, breastfeeding was very important. So I was going to be in the mother's room at work expressing instead of hanging out and building connections with my colleagues during lunchtime, because that was my priority. So other times, my kids are grown, they can take care of themselves, they're doing homework, they're doing other stuff, and then I can focus, work harder, put in extra hours even on the weekends because they've got sports schedules and other things that they're doing. So I just need to know though that in different times, different things I'll be able to drop different things, and I can't just always label my children as a glass ball all the time because it changes situation to situation. So just have that wisdom to know what your values are and to align to them when it comes to your career and the decisions that you make. Number 6 is that you won't know everything, so ask. And it's still taking me a long time to get to this point, because sometimes you're like, I'm gonna be embarrassed, I'm gonna ask this, whereas it's obvious, but you never know. Maybe everyone else in the room is asking themselves that very same question. So I've seen that in corporate, it's very important to ask, because you can also make very big mistakes that can have huge consequences for the organization if you don't ask. And I work with regulations. If I misinterpret something and I send that to a client and they misinterpret it and they get fined by the regulator because they misinterpreted and applied that regulation incorrectly, that's a huge problem. So I can't be uncertain. I need to make sure that I'm sure about things. So I've also seen that people in the workplace are very open to assisting someone, and sometimes when you ask, it also just shows how smart you are and how diligent you are and how thoughtful you are, because you do have those questions. Because half the time people don't ask because that thing hasn't even crossed their minds sometimes. So the fact that it's crossing your mind could actually gain you points, instead of you thinking it's taking something from you. It's probably taking nothing from you. The 7th one is work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and you will see the fruit of this in other areas of your life. I've just found that the more I work on developing myself, the better I show up in the workplace. For example, I was doing this management development course. It was my personal decision to do it. No one forced me into it. And as soon as I did it, I also saw myself being put in managerial roles that need me to take ownership and apply some of those skills that I've been learning in this management development course. So you'll grow as far as you grow personally, and I work a lot on myself personally, and that's why I do see myself growing as well in my career and in other spheres of life. So that's just something that I would encourage anyone to do. Work hard on yourself and you'll see the fruit coming through into your job as well. The 8th one is that isms exist. And by isms I mean racism, sexism, the isms of this world. They exist, and you need to just decide what side of the isms you want to play at. Do you want to contribute to those stereotypes and the division, or do you want to play towards transformation and diversity in the workplace and inclusion as well? So that's something that I've seen, and I used to be so oblivious, guys, and naive and be like, no man, these things don't exist. Oh no, but they do. So it's very important if you do find yourself in a privileged state, because it depends. I can be privileged in one situation and I can be disadvantaged in another situation. So whenever I find myself in a privileged situation, I do try to stand up for those who are not privileged, and when I'm disadvantaged, I appreciate those who do stand up for me, and I also try to stand up for myself where I can. I feel like it's important as a person to decide on which side of the isms are you gonna err. Are you going to be an ally for anyone who's disadvantaged and marginalized, or are you just going to let the stereotypes and the division continue? And number 9 is to manage yourself like a brand. I remember when I passed my matric, I think I had a speech to say at church, and I mentioned being the CEO of my life, and that has carried me through till this day. And I've had moments, weak moments, where I haven't carried myself as Usnigiwengo, with the brand that I am, and I'm developing, but at the back of my mind I've always had that, and I try to bring it back, to carry myself as a brand, almost like I need to treat myself like a company, and then I need to manage myself, manage how I'm perceived, manage how I interact with people, and just manage my brand, man, so that I don't have things that cast doubt over my abilities, over my career, just because I'm reckless with how I carry myself. So I take myself very seriously. If you look at brands, they're very quick to issue statements to distance themselves from certain controversial topics. So I've seen that it's crucial for me to do similarly in my life, to distance myself from certain behaviors, to distance myself from certain people sometimes, so that I can maintain my good reputation. I know now it might come across as airy-fairy or too much, but just know that you are a brand in corporate, and everywhere you go you are building on, whether you are adding a brick or taking a brick away from that brand that you're building. So just be careful and take care of yourself and your brand. Number 10 is have fun and don't be scared to pivot when you need to. There are roles or organizations where I've overstayed my welcome, stayed way longer than I should have. Oh gosh, I want to cringe. If you need to shift jobs because something no longer aligns with you, do it. Don't be scared. Don't be on some, oh no, I can't because of 1, 2, 3. No, pivot as soon as you can, because there will always be something available, especially if you are qualified, if you are hardworking, you're working on yourself, you're developing yourself, you've got a lot to contribute, and you're an eager learner. You'll be fine in the workplace. So don't ever stay too long somewhere where you no longer want to stay. I just feel like you must never be scared to pivot. Pivot. It's hurtful, it's not nice, but somebody's gotta do it. You can't force yourself to stay if it's no longer like working out for you. And also just think of that role as well. If you're no longer 100% in, or at least 80% in, you're also disadvantaging that organization by staying, because they deserve someone who's passionate, energetic, and really eager to do the work. And that's that on that. Those are my 10 lessons that I've learned in my 10 years in corporate. I hope they have helped you, and I will see you on the next one. Bye guys.